Hello. Here we are. I'm happy to welcome Ed Woodall. Am I saying it right? The accent right?
Woodall.
Woodall? Oh. Say it one more time.
Ed Woodall.
Woodall. Woodall.
Yeah,
Okay, it's
that's
definitely
Woodall.
different
That's
than
Woodall. It's quite hard to
Woodall.
say. My name, unfortunately, is I find quite hard to say even. Edward Woodall. That's my full name. I have tried to change it once or twice, but it's never stuck. So
All right. I'm glad I asked. Well, welcome. Welcome to Ed Woodall.
Good.
From A Sense of Movement. Also this new creation of Ed's called the Isolation Consolation. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a Facebook group.
Yeah, a Facebook group where Ed is teaching lessons 2 times a day during the weekdays during this wild period that we are in. So thank you for doing that, Ed. It's a big service to many people. And I haven't had so much time to lay down on the floor, but every once in a while you come into my feed and I hear you. And just even hearing your voice and your presence and being yourself and doing your thing and sharing Feldenkrais in the way that you do, I'm just like feeling very grateful that you're here in a solid presence right now during this time that is so not solid. And so things are moving and changing and uncertain, and you feel like this solid rock. So
what a nice thing to say. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm happy to have you here in the Move, Create, Practice Facebook group. And we're also streaming this live on YouTube, which is an exciting new angle on things. And Ed is going to teach a little mini Feldenkrais lesson / creative movement experiment. You can say more about it. So I'm going to pass the baton to you, and you can continue.
Okay. Thanks very much, Tiffany. Thanks very much for having me. Thank you for inviting me onto this group. Just to say a little bit about myself, and as I'm talking, if you want to find a chair would be fine. If you want to lie down, you could also lie down. I will ask you to get up at some point and do something simple like move a chair around or close some curtains or just do something simple whilst thinking about some of the movement that you've been doing. So, but for the moment, if you want to just lie down or sit down, that's great. You don't need to see me, so you don't need to look at the screen, but if you want to, you can. But I would advise, once we start, I would advise, closing your eyes or just, looking above the screen so you can be in your own space. I have a background in the theatre, sometimes on the kind of commercial end of theatre, doing naturalistic acting, and sometimes on the more creative, physical theatre, movement theatre kind of end of things. So I have a wide experience in that, and I've been training. I started training in the Feldenkrais method in 2010, qualified, and now I'm a Feldenkrais practitioner. That's my job now, but I still have a movement practice. So I still teach something called integrated acting, which is my kind of movement approach to actor training. And I'm going to adapt a little bit of that for you today. It occurred to me at one point that using abstract movement and creative movement was very good at helping actors get into character. I thought, well, maybe it can help ordinary people or myself change a behavior or change an attitude or change a kind of atmosphere around work or relationships or whatever it is. So the basic idea today is we're going to do a Feldenkrais type scan or visualization to get going. And then I'm going to ask you to think about something in your life or your practice or your creative practice which isn't quite going how you would like it to do. And I'm going to ask you to think about a word to start with, which let's say for me it's procrastination. So I procrastinate. And then I might think, well, what's the opposite of that? Well, it's kind of getting on with it. So you don't have to think of a clever word, but just something around something that goes well, that's not going so well. And then could there be another way of doing things a bit better? And we're going to apply movement to those two kind of poles, if you like. Okay, so just grounding yourself. So feel the contact of your feet on the floor. If you're lying, pay attention to the whole of your spread, if you like, how you're contacting the floor. And if you're sitting, how your contact with the seat is. Can you feel what you call your sit bones? Maybe you're kind of leaning back a bit, maybe you're sat forward. Just notice whether your back is arched or maybe it's bent. Try and find some way of being comfortable. If you are sitting up as well, do take breaks. Just sit back whenever you want to. I'll offer some little breaks, but take your own breaks when you need. And take your attention particularly down to the tips of your fingers, please. And just notice there's whether your fingernails are on your legs or on the floor, or is it the pads of your fingers? If you just go to your right hand, can you feel some fingers more than others? Do you use some fingers more than others? Do they show up in your mind's eye as you send your attention down to your right hand? And then just let that go. And take your attention over to your left hand. Again, noticing what's the actual contact that your hand makes with the surface that it's on. Knuckles, pads, side of the hand. Where's actually in contact? And without looking, have you got a notion of which finger is most prominent, or thumb? Just which shows up for you most? Is it the index finger? You know, that's one we use a lot. If you're a pianist, you might get a kind of cleaner sweep of attention. Let it go. Let it go. Just rest. And then imagine the bones inside your hands. So if you just want to take one hand to start with, of course, there's the bone, the phalange right on the end of the finger. Then you can choose any finger. Then there's another bone a bit longer. And then another slightly longer one. There's 3 bones in each finger. And that joins your hand in what you might call your knuckle. Lots of little bones in the back of your hand. And then we move into your wrist. There's 2 bones in your lower arm, the ulnar and the radius. If you just give your wrist a bit of a turn, just turn your wrist slightly from one side to the other. Make it a very easy movement, no stretching. You might have some sort of notion of, well, there's a small bone that's turning around a big bone. Kind of one moves and one stays much more stable. And then just bring your attention up to your upper arm, big bone coming from your elbow up into your shoulder joint. You just allow yourself to move your arm in whatever way feels interesting, comfortable, and just put some attention in the shoulder joint, knowing that there's a ball in the socket, and to move the arm anywhere, you'd have to let this ball move in the socket. And just become aware of how that's all connected, and then bring your hand back down to your lap or floor or wherever it is. And then just try and trace the contact back from your shoulder, down your arm, through your elbow, 2 bones of your lower arm, lots of little bones in your hand, and then out through your fingers, 3 bones in each finger. And just rest. And just go over to the other hand, the one you didn't pay attention to, and try and make just a quick scan. Afraid we haven't got time to do a full sort of investigation of the other hand and wrist and arm and up into your shoulder, but see if you can kind of take almost an X-ray picture of the little fingers, hand, wrist, lower arm, upper arm. And just remembering that there is a ball at the top of the upper arm bone, the humerus, and then just allow your arm to move wherever's completely easy for you. Nothing special, but just noticing that ball is going to turn in the socket, and actually then start to move the other arm. So this is not strictly Feldenkrais, but just move both arms out in front of you in whatever way feels interesting. You can relax your wrist, you can tighten your fingers, you can point your elbow, you can move a little bit in your chest and your ribs, and very gently, nothing interesting, nothing creative, as it were, but just seeing where your arms will go. See where your arms will go. Maybe your hands can touch one another. Just briefly, you could roll one hand around the other. You could sweep up one arm, stroke the other. Just a little bit of freedom, a little bit of fun with your arms and hands. And let it go. Just let it go. And rest for a second. And now I want you to think. So this is moving more into this creative movement phase. Think about an issue that's slightly bothering you. It's just getting you a little bit, why this doesn't work or that doesn't work, or why you behave like this instead of like that. We all do that, I'm pretty sure. None of us is perfect. Wouldn't the world be boring if we were? So I've got no real way of knowing whether you've thought of something, so just give it a go. If you're lost, then just listen, I don't know, watch it, and then if you can think of something, maybe give it a go later. But I'll have to go at the pace I can go at, and you'll have to try and fit into that somehow. So I want you to think of this thing which isn't going so well, and I want you to kind of have a word for it if you can, a word or a sentence. You know, for me, it might be, oh, I'm judgmental about things. I don't really want to be judgmental. That was one I came up with years ago in relation to my children, for instance. Don't want to be judgmental. So have a think of something which is not quite so good for you, which you'd rather not be. Okay? In relation to your creative practice, relationships, whatever. Hopefully you're on your own. No one's going to know. You can give this a go. So what you're going to do now, just with your hands, to keep it kind of safe and relatively easy, I want you to just start moving your hands in a way that relates to the thing that you've just thought of. So this is the, if you like, the negative side of your behavior. So if it was for me, and if you want to watch, if it was judgmental, it would be sort of, you know, it would be a kind of thing. So whatever it is for you, whether you're feeling lazy or whether you're feeling overexcited, anxious, see if you can make some kind of almost sort of abstract dance with your hands, fingers even, if you just want to do fingers. And then just keep going with it for a few seconds. And maybe you could include a little bit more of your upper body, your arms could get involved. If you want to involve your face, maybe your face is involved. And just rest. Just reflect on what you've done. And then just see if you could do a sort of quick version of it. You know, if you could kind of essentialize it. So this process is actually called essential movement sequences. Could you essentialize some of the moving around with your hands and your arms that you've just done? And just give it a go. Make a sort of quite a, you know, 1, 2, 3 kind of moves which sum up what it is you were doing. And then let that go. Close your eyes. And see if somewhere in your head, in your chest, in your belly, in your loins, somewhere, probably in your chest, can you kind of recall the movement? Could you imagine something like a sort of ghost or a trace of the movement living inside you? And if it's something that you're not happy about, it might be a bit uncomfortable, but we'll move on from this, so don't worry. Can you allow this movement to kind of breathe in you? And then let it go. Let it go. Just rest for a moment. And then I want you to get up, move around, and do something. But while you're doing it, you're going to be imagining that this movement that you had for whatever this thing is that isn't so great is living within you. So if you go and open some curtains or move some paper from one side of the table to the other, or you know, move a chair, can you do it somewhat with the atmosphere, the feeling, the movement of this experiment that you've just tried? Or even say something. If you're on your own, you know, maybe say at the beginning of a nursery rhyme, Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, Humpty Dumpty. So for me, if I was being judgmental, it would be, there'd be a kind of real kind of atmosphere to it. But maybe you could try that. You could try speaking from the point of view of this behavior, this part of you that isn't so great. And then let it go. Let it go. Sit down, lie down. You'll be getting up quite soon, so don't get too comfortable. So to a certain extent, part of the problem for us humans is that if something's wrong, sometimes it stays locked in one's head. And the great thing about creative practice, whether you're a painter or a musician or whatever it is, you can get things out, positive and negative. And this for me is the great beauty of creative movement, is that you can kind of get a vision of something outside of you, which might otherwise stay inside of you. So if you're following this, then you've got a kind of vision now of a thing that's not so great. So we're going to leave that to one side now. That's done. You've seen it, you've named it. So now I want you to think about something that's opposite from the thing that's bothering you. And again, just to give you an example, if we were in a long workshop, I'd probably just leave you to figure it out yourself. But since this is quite quick, the opposite of judgmental for me was accepting. I accept my children's behavior. I accept. So I found movement, kind of almost sort of letting an apple fall into my hand, or just sort of giving softly. So have a go. Think of the opposite of the thing you've just done and start moving your hands. Keep it safe and easy. You don't have to be a dancer. You don't have to be a movement person. Everyone can move their hands around a bit. And you'll notice that the movement that you do with your hands, if you've got any kind of notion of how this works, is really different from what you were doing before. And these are two sides of you. These are two parts of you which exist, good and bad. Yeah, I think we all have them. So just develop it a little bit. And goodness me, if you're on your own, you could even make a bit of sound. Oh, 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 oh. Or maybe the thing that you were worried about was you were too soft. Oh, now you need to be a bit more punchy. So maybe you're doing a kind of punchy movement. I don't know. But definitely make it a different movement from the first movement you did. And then rest, stop from doing it. And as you've stopped, see if you can still imagine something of the world of this movement, the character of it, the atmosphere of it, living on within you. Maybe it's in your head, maybe it's in your chest, maybe it's in your belly. And then just have a go at doing the positive movement again and keep it kind of snappy. So just make 2 or 3 movements which sum it up, which essentialize it. And let it go for a second, have a short break. And then go back to doing some of the things that you were doing before. The thing about the curtain, or the papers on the table, or the chair, or whatever it was, or saying a nursery rhyme. And see if you can allow the positive movement, the thing that you want to embody more, allow that to inform you. This is, in a sense, how actors work. They have to transform completely, not just an idea, but they have to transform somatically into another body, into another world. So see if you can do that. Maybe it's a surprise, maybe it's familiar. Would you like to be like this more often? With this kind of movement quality, or this kind of, psychological quality. So movement is psychology, is emotion. Emotion, out of motion. Okay, and let it go. And just rest. Just come and sit down, lie down, whatever it was you were doing at the beginning. And we've pretty much, I finished my bit, nearly. Just one more, 30 more seconds. And just think about that kind of second movement. Is it possible that, think about the first, is it possible that you could catch yourself behaving in a way that doesn't suit you so much more often, having made a movement of it? Is it possible that you could invite yourself more often into a kind of new or better behavior according to your own judgment, with a sense of movement behind it? That's my offer. That's my suggestion to you that it's possible. And you're so interesting, actually. If you have a think about this, and you have to kind of divide things into two, it's a slightly kind of polar binary kind of thing, and it's obviously a simplification, but it's quite an interesting way to think about behavior in terms of I do that, but then on the other side, I can do that. There's that. There's that. Okay. I think I'm gonna end there. And there's Tiffany. She's back.
Thank you. Thank you. Well,
were you busy doing something else?
What's that?
Did you give it a go?
I did. I was like, from too much going on to this like nice, simple stuff, which was really nice.
Great.
I feel like I have something really sweet to take with me, and I'll play with this more. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Lovely.
My pleasure.
Lovely. And we have more in common and more to talk about and more to explore than I initially realized. So we won't have to get into it here, but
this was worth it then, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's a lovely intersection and how it dovetails into the organic intelligence practice. And then also in our conversation earlier, you were mentioning authentic movement, which is another big part of what I do. So there's a lot of crossover, and I'm excited.
I've only read the book.
Okay, cool.
I sort of, when I'm doing movement and I want to make it more organic, and I want to let people do what they want to do rather than as an instructor or as an acting teacher try to get them to do what I kind of want them to do, then I pull on the slightly more authentic movement end of the spectrum, if you like.
Nice. I see there's some comments coming in. Somatic transformation, beautiful. Movement is emotion.
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah.
You spend years thinking about titles for things, and then suddenly someone. That's great.
Yeah. So I did actually manage to put a link to your group in the top of the post. And if you're just coming on now and you're seeing this replay will be up, you can revisit it later. And Ed, do you want to say anything else about your online classes or what you have?
Well, just to say that, I'm doing this doing short lessons on Facebook at Isolation Consolation, and I'm doing a drop-in, doing a once a week drop-in on Thursdays, and there's a few places left on the kind of term-based classes and that's all Feldenkrais. That's all Feldenkrais. And what I'm starting to do actually is to adapt the kind of acting teaching that I do, which always uses abstract movement and abstract sound. I mean, that's what I do. So, and I'm starting to adapt that for people who are a bit stuck with something. I mean, kind of sort of using some of the process that I've been just doing here. And it seems to be a brilliant way for people to get out of their heads and into their body in a way that's kind of, easy to do and meaningful. So I'm doing one-to-ones online, Feldenkrais as well. I mean, I can instruct people without putting my hands on them. And I'm also learning pretty quickly how to help people without putting my hands, and also using, finding a segue into some of this more somatic transformation.
Nice.
And it's all on my website, asenseofmovement.com.
Great. And I'll link to that too. Happy to have you here as a guest and looking forward to future collaborations. And I feel like this, really feels lovely. Ed and I crossed paths in Corinna May's Linklater / Feldenkrais series that was part of Movement and Creativity Library. And that was fun to connect that way.
Really good. Really good.
And looking forward to future connections.
And a whole new world is opening up. I was busy thinking, I really got to get a local practice, which I still do. I mean, it's important for me to be part of my local place, but it's also interesting talking to people from Hong Kong, Bulgaria, and
Yeah.
Canada all at the same time. Amazing. So
Yeah. Wonderful.
it is a strange time, and yet, for some of us, it's been a sort of complete revelation.
Cool.
I wouldn't be
Well,
talking
this
to you
feels,
now without it. I might have eventually, but it would have taken longer, I suspect.
yeah. So this is like a kind of, for me, moment of transition into this period of creative sparks, that's Creative Sparks 2020. So this feels like actually like impromptu kickoff of Creative Sparks. I didn't plan it that way, but really I'm about to send out the email about it. And there's a lineup of free classes next week, 5 free classes, Feldenkrais, Organic Intelligence, and Creative Process classes. And there's 5 free days of Movement and Creativity Library. So I'll put the link in the chat. And that starts Sunday on my birthday. I'm turning
Amazing.
42 and felt like I'm definitely not going to have a Zoom party for my birthday. And so Creative Sparks is my birthday present to myself, is gathering people inspired by and getting to learn and create together. So we have David Zemach-Burson, who's a Feldenkrais trainer, and the founder of Organic, and Steve Hoskinson, and Amy Walsh, who's an artist and educator. What is she called hers? Tiny Acts of Imagination for Creative Self-Care.
Oh, nice.
And David's is Balance, Ease, and Creativity in the Feldenkrais method. And I've been like asking for a long time for this one lesson. He teaches this lesson about the spine, moving one vertebra at a time. That is just like so beautiful. And so finally he's agreed to do it. So I'm excited. And then I'm teaching one called The Creative Path to Strength and Length, which is influenced by Jeremy Krause's Feldenkrais approach to
good stuff there.
Yeah. So anyways, I'll put the link in. I know you got to go, and I'm going to carry this with me. Thank you.
Real pleasure. Thanks for letting me, thanks for taking a chance on this. I mean, this is not proven. This is me kind of drawing together the strings of all the work I've done over the years as a movement practitioner, as a Feldenkrais person, as an actor. So actually for you to go, give it a go, was a real thrill. It's a real buzz. And I'd be fascinated, literally fascinated to hear what people made of it, because for me, it's in a totally different context to how I would normally do it, and without much context as well, nothing around it. So I wonder what a kind of one-shot version of this can be like online. I'd love to know.
For experiments, and so if you ever want to, do it again, let's make it happen.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, we are now in touch.
Sounds good. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Bye.
Bye now. Are you going to disappear me, or do I just go?
I think you'll just go. Yeah. Joe is saying, love the integration of your acting work, Ed. Really lovely ways to work with emotion and movement. Really nice.
That's nice.
Okay.
That makes the day worth getting up for.
Yay.
Okay.
Bye now.